Call the question?
Are we listening? Are we hearing?
That's Councillor Trowbridge.
Yeah. Is Councillor Trowbridge on?
He is online.
Yes.
Oh, I heard the first.
Let's see if this helps him.
Councillor Trowbridge, are you hearing us?
I am now.
Okay, perfect. So the motion was moved by Councillor Trowbridge, seconded by Councillor Richardson to appoint Councillor Weberink as chair. So I will call a question. All those in favor? Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carried, so I will turn the meeting over to Chair Weberink.
Okay, thank you. So I'll have approval of the agenda. A recommendation would read that the agenda be approved as circulated. Do I have someone to move? Second?
Move.
Second. Call the question. All those in favor? Councillor Trowbridge?
Aye.
Okay. Adoption of the minutes. Recommendation reads that the minutes of the parcel tax roll review panel meeting held on Tuesday, April 20th, 2021 be adopted as circulated. I have someone to move that.
Move.
Seconded? Right. Councillor Trowbridge, I couldn't hear him. Second? Second, okay. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. New business, parcel tax roll for Anmore Green Estates Local Area Service Loan Bylaw 674-2023. So this is regarding the parcel tax for the Anmore Green Estates property regarding the sewer connection. Just for those of you who are wondering what we're talking about. So I'll turn it over to Lena Martin, our Manager of Financial Services, for a verbal report.
Good evening to the Parcel Tax Review Panel. Under the Community Charter, Section 203, once the parcel tax roll has been prepared, the parcel tax roll must be available for public inspection. The parcel tax roll was available at the Village Hall for public inspection as of March 17th, 2023. Under Section 204, at least 14 days before the date set for the sitting of the parcel tax roll, the collector must mail to the owner of every parcel of land that is to be taxed. A letter was mailed on March 20th, 2023 to the folios noted on the parcel tax roll. Under Section 205, a person may make a complaint to the parcel tax roll review panel with a written notice in those 2 weeks, and no complaints were received.
Thank you, Ms. Martin. So I'm going to read the recommendation that the Anmore Green Estates Local Area Service Loan Parcel Tax Roll Bylaw 674-2023 be authenticated and the certificate of authentication be signed by the panel. Do I have someone to move that? Moved by Councillor Richardson, seconded by Councillor Trowbridge. I'll call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Carried unanimously. Okay, I will call for adjournment. So move. Moved by Councillor Richardson, seconded by Councillor Trowbridge. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.
Aye.
Thank you, Councillor Weber. I'd like to call to order the public hearing agenda, which will be starting right before our regular council meeting. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Opening statement by the chair. These are regarding 4 infill applications. Good evening. Thank you all for coming tonight for the public hearing on the proposed amendments to the Village of Anmore zoning bylaw. This hearing is being held under the authority of Section 464 of the Local Government Act. Council for the Village of Anmore has given first and second readings to the zoning bylaw, amendment bylaw number 665-2023, 666-2023, 667-2023, and 668-2023, and 669-2023, and directed that the public hearing be held tonight. I will now ask Ms. Elric, our CAO, to confirm that the public hearing notice has been provided.
Thank you. Yes, I can confirm that notice was provided pursuant to the Local Government Act and our public hearing bylaw, and that the village received one submission late today, which has been distributed to council and is available for public viewing should anyone wish.
We're going to be doing each one of these individually. Staff will present a summary on the proposed bylaw, and following the summary, the floor will be open to anyone in attendance who wishes to present his or her views on the proposed bylaw. Please note that this is not a question and answer period, and it is not an opportunity to debate the merits of the proposed bylaw with council, staff, or others in attendance. We want to ensure that all attendees who wish to speak tonight are provided the opportunity to do so. If you wish to provide comments, please come to the podium when invited to do so and begin your presentation by clearly stating your name and address for the official record. A 3-minute time limit will apply to each speaker, and a second opportunity will be provided after everyone has been given the chance to provide comments for the first time. Before the public hearing concludes, I will make a call for speakers 3 times before concluding the hearing. Once the public hearing is concluded, the Local Government Act requires that council not accept any further input from the public relating to the proposed amended bylaw prior to the consideration of the next reading of the bylaw. I now ask Mr. Boyd, Manager of Development Services, to present the zoning bylaw amendment. Mr. Boyd.
Thank you, Your Worship. So the first zoning amendment bylaw to be reviewed tonight, public hearing, is 665-2023. The civic address being 68
I'm just going to
Elementary
hold
Road.
Councillor Will. Please proceed.
Okay, I'll just give a general brief of this bylaw amendment. At January 17th council meeting, we reviewed the bylaw previously, and it is in relation to a parcel of land in 1 acre in size. The land is currently in the RS1 zone, and the proponent wishes to move it into the established INF zone, so the infill zone, which will allow 2 units per acre on the land. We reviewed the land in regards to the existing infill policy, and it met all the requirements of the infill policy.
Good. So do you have a recommendation for this, or do we want to go through all of them?
Do you have a recommendation?
Oh, no, there's
No recommendation will be-
Okay, so I'll open it up for anybody wanting to provide any comments regarding bylaw number 665-2023, 68 Elementary Road. I'll call a second. Oh, please. State your name and address.
If you can, sorry, if you
The
can just
mic
press,
on
so that the button is
There's a-
blue, just
Right
on the,
right on the base.
It's Marvin Duke, 2580 Sunnyside Road.
Oh, just press it once. Once the blue button's on, it means it's on.
I just had a question. I was kind of under the understanding that it was a problem getting access to Sunnyside Road. So if this lot goes through, I'm sure there'll be a driveway go in. I'm kind of thinking about my own issue here if I was to do the infill myself, because I heard that there might be a problem.
Yeah, Mr. Duke, this is only to provide comments on a specific one that's in front of us, not your own property.
Right, that's
So,
why I'm asking about this one.
well, you can only provide comments on this. This is not a debate to ask questions. You can do that by reaching out to the village hall in regards to it.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's just to provide, if you have any concerns or comments about this specific application.
Mhm. Okay, no, I got no problem.
Okay, thanks. I'll call a second time. Anybody have any, provide any comments? I'll call a third time. We're going to close then the zoning amendment bylaw second reading for zoning amendment bylaw 665-2023. Yeah. Oh, you're okay.
Yeah.
Okay. As soon as it's ready. Okay, we'll now move on to number 4, presentation of zoning bylaw amendment, bylaw number 666, 2023-2519 East Road.
Thank you, Your Worship.
Hold on, before we start.
I'll recuse myself.
Okay, similar to the previous parcel, we held a meeting January 17th to review this parcel of land. It qualifies under the policy of infill. It currently is in RS1 zone, and the proponent is requesting to move it into the infill zone, which will allow 2 units per acre.
Good. Open up for any public comments regarding bylaw number 666-2023 for a first time. Oh, sure.
Is that on or do you want to turn it off? It's on. Will Crocker, 2045 Lane Drive in Anmore. Just related to the application and the information that was provided. It wasn't clear from the application, but this would be a minimum lot size of 1/3 and the other lot remaining 2/3, so we'd have 2 improvements on the acre. Is that the case, or the concern is that it opens up the lot to down the road become a third, and a third of an acre?
Yeah, we can't really accept questions. Is there a comment
this
on
is
it?
not a
Okay.
good question.
And so
There's
that
a
information
comment.
isn't clarified on the application, and so that would be something that I'd like to see. I do live across the street, and I live across the street from a 2-acre parcel, and so just wanted to be clear as to what the precedent was to maintain the character of the neighborhood. One other piece in regards to that is we do have houses that are built on Lega Drive that have septic systems that are beside the homes. And so that becomes a bit of a noise feature when they have audible alarms, when the septic systems go through their various sequence of operations. So I think in particular on Lega Drive, I think that would be just a concern about where the actual residents are set, where their septic fields are set and the operation equipment. I don't think it's fair to have the neighbors have septic pumps and operation equipment on the side, gaining that in that case. So just pointed out that, that is some information that isn't apparent in the application, and I think, in consideration of that, I think there should be some information verified. Other than that, if it's simply two improvements going in on an acre, and they had to situate it so they had a 1/3 and 2/3, I think it meets the intent of the infill. So, thank you.
I will just say that in the application, all those questions that you asked were part of the application. So they've already come before council.
Okay.
Okay, I'll ask a third time. Anybody with any comments regarding 666-2023, 2519 East Road for the third time? Seeing none, I will now deem it closed. Okay, we'll now move on to zoning bylaw amendment, bylaw number 667-2023, 2860 Sunnyside Road. Mr. Boyd.
Thank you, Your Worship. On to the next zone. Similar to the previous 2, this came before council on January 17th, 2023. It was reviewed with regard to the policy and met all the policy requirements. And it will move this parcel of land from RS1 into the INF infill zone, and it will allow for 2 lots per acre.
Open it up for any comments regarding bylaw number 667-2023, 2860 Sunnyside. I'll do a second call for any comments. And finally, a third call. Okay, seeing none, I will do 667-23 bylaw is closed now. Public hearing. We'll now move on to presentation zoning bylaw amendment number 668-2023, 3060 Anmore Creek. Mr. Boyd.
Thank you, Your Worship. similar to the past three. This piece of land was put before council on January 17th. Was reviewed within the report that it met the policy requirements of infill, and it was this zone amendment will change it from the RS1 zone into the INF infill zone.
Now open up the floor to anybody wishing to speak to zoning bylaw amendment number 668-2023 for a first time.
It is a quick question.
There's no questions, it's just public input.
It's just there was an email sent from the owner of 3007 Sunnyside Road. It wasn't acknowledged that the council has received that letter.
Yes, it was at the beginning.
Yes, I did acknowledge that there was one submission received, and it's available for public viewing and has been distributed to
That was
council.
just-
If you'd like to come see it, you can.
I've seen it, I just want to make sure everybody
Okay,
got it.
yeah.
Yes,
Thank you.
all right, thank you. Any, I'll call the second time, any public input regarding bylaw number 66H-2023? I'll make a third call. Seeing none, I will close then the public hearing for bylaw number 668-2023. I'll now move on to number 7, presentation of zoning bylaw amendment, bylaw number 669-2023, 2192 Sunnyside Road. Mr. Boyd.
Last but not means least, as presented like the previous four parcels, this parcel of land has gone before council on January 17th, 2023. It was reviewed in regards to the policy requirements of infill. It met those requirements for infill, and it will move this parcel of land from RS1 into infill.
I'll open it up for first time for speakers or anybody wanting to provide comments to bylaw amendment number 669-2023, which is 2192 Sunnyside Road.
Fiona Cherry, 120 Hemlock. I was just a few comments. I was a bit confused about this one because there was addresses 2192 Ludlow Lane and 2194 Ludlow Lane. And Ludlow Lane is very similar, I believe, to Montmorey. And I just want to know what the consistency is, because I'm assuming that they have to do a road properly like we possibly have to do on Montmorey Lane. So I just want to find out, eventually, what is the consistency? What type of road has to be done? Because we don't know in our situation. Okay, so my comment is perhaps that could be provided, and as far as consistency is, because they're the same situation. That's my comment.
Thank you so much. I'll open up the second time. Any comments regarding bylaw number 669-2023, 2192 Sunnyside Road? And for a third time, I'll now deem the public hearing for that closed. Could I get someone to move close of the public hearing? Moved. Seconded. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Okay, thank you everyone.
Just one quick question. When is there meetings to actually ask questions about this? Did it already happen with all these parcel separations?
We're sorry, we're not allowed to speak to it now that the public hearing has ended. So there will be debate for the bylaw here, but it will be a council-only debate. Once the public hearing is closed, no more comments can be made regarding any of the bylaws. Sorry. Okay, I'd like to get started on the regular council meeting. Current time is 7:19. The Village of Anmore would like to open our meeting by recognizing the many Indigenous peoples of our area, including the following First Nations, with communities are located in the region that we now know as Metro Vancouver: Musqueam, Squamish, Tsleil-Waututh, and Coquitlam. Further, we'd like to honor the important place in history occupied by the many territorial keepers of these lands and waters around us since time immemorial. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Approval of the agenda. The recommendation would read.
That the agenda be approved as circulated.
Moved. Seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. Public input. Public is permitted to provide comments to council on any item shown on the meeting agenda. 2-minute time limit applies to speakers. I will remind people that we cannot take any questions regarding any of the public hearings. So, anybody have any And just list your name and address.
Hi, Greg Moore, Anmore South. I want to comment on, I think it's 3 point something, the Metro Vancouver number C, 7C in your consent agenda, the adoption of the Metro Vancouver 2050 updated regional growth strategy. So I'm glad to see this is in front of council. It's in front of all councils around the Lower Mainline now that Metro Vancouver has adopted it. As the owners of Anmore South, we're glad that the special study area designation that was designated from when the land moved in the Livable Region Strategic Plan to Metro 2040 and was identified as an area of transition. The whole Ioko land area, as well as the Imperial Oil land, was identified as a special study area, as an area of transition. And we're glad to see that in Metro 2050 that it's still maintained as a special study area, which is also identified in the OCP, and through the regional context statement has that legal linkage between the OCP and the regional growth strategy. And I know it states here in the letter that over the next couple of years that you have to ensure that your OCP is updated to reflect the new goals and objectives of Metro 2050. And I can tell you, as we progress forward with our land, we'll ensure that we're also meeting those Metro 2050 goals. We won't be looking at 2040, we'll be looking ahead at 2050 to ensure that there is alignment there. So I'm glad to see that this is here tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else with public input? No? Okay, we will then move on. We have a delegation. Leaders yielding to New Knowledge Foundation. Sir Darren Jackman, leaders yielding to New Knowledge Foundation, to provide a delegation regarding a request for support for community fundraising event in Anmore. Please welcome.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, Mayor and Council. My name is Sir Darren Jackman. I'm grateful to be here this evening. My good friend Darren Smurfoot and I do a lot of hiking in the Anmore area. It's beautiful country out here. Just love it out here. My wife and I in 2018 did a humanitarian trip together over to Liberia, West Africa. My wife was a high school teacher for 35 years here in the Vancouver area. And when I brought her over for her first humanitarian trip, we witnessed children being sold for $1 US. You could buy a child for $1 and do whatever you want with a child from 6 to 11 years of age. And my wife being a high school teacher for 35 years, it really impacted her greatly, and myself. So we created an international foundation to build schools for some of the most impoverished children on the planet. During COVID, we were in lockdown. We couldn't go anywhere, couldn't do anything. So I started hiking a lot, and I released 40 pounds in weight from hiking. And all these people on social media started reaching out to me saying, hey, what are you doing? This is amazing. So what we thought was, what if we brought people together to create community and collaboration and be out in nature? So I have people come in from all over the place now that hike with me all over. I'm doing Mount Kilimanjaro in July. I'm doing one of the top mountains in the world. So what we thought about was, with Link Foundation, is an international foundation. I have a team of people that volunteer from all walks of life. We thought in June, looking at Saturday, June 24th, to do Bunsen Lake on Saturday, June 24th, and actually do a hike. And people would come in, they'd pay a small registration fee, we could get corporate sponsorship, and they can come out and hike. We'd have a total of 100 hikers and 30 volunteers, so a total of 130 people would come out. The park would be open, we'd use the facilities, and then what we would do is, with the registration fees, because we're an international foundation, they would get a tax receipt, and with the sponsorship, that money would be raised to actually build a school to educate children. And we do a lot of stuff with the foundation here locally as well, and we do stuff internationally. So what we're looking at with Anmore is, because it's beautiful out here, and it's just a great area, and I love it out here, it's inspiring. And I thought with the 100 hikers coming out here, we can support local businesses by coming out here and get more exposure to what's going on in the community. And our request is that if we could look at what the community of Anmore is, a request is, I've got a letter of support from the Village of Anmore, permission to use the Village of Anmore logo, and then a request to have the Village of Anmore help promote the event. Also, too, as a request, if you have any white tents or traffic cones or barricades or tables or chairs, fencing or porta potties, if we need any of that kind of stuff, we'll be grateful to help that. But yeah, the biggest thing is just bringing people in from all walks of life to come out hiking, use the facilities, and have a great time, have a great experience, and make a difference. And then the people from that can post on social media or watch our social media and watch what we do with their financial dollars, as we are accountable and responsible for that, to see that we make a difference in people's lives. And so I'm grateful for that, and I'm grateful to be here.
Well, I appreciate your enthusiasm. I also share a lot of your similar thoughts about what a special place this is.
Absolutely.
I think that before this village would engage in anything at this point, I think the number one thing is that you would have to get some sort of authorization through BC Hydro.
Okay.
BC Hydro is, they don't, again, the lake is in Anmore, but
Yes.
they are the operator
Okay.
of it, and I think it would be important to get their blessing because you're reaching an area or a time of the summer on June 24th,
Yes.
depending on the weather, that it's going to be very problematic to
Yep.
facilitate something like this.
Gotcha.
It's a nice day.
Okay.
So I would suggest that you, I thank you for coming and
Sure.
presenting. I completely respect the cause, but I think that that would be your first step is to get some authorization from BC Hydro. It would not be, what you're asking for is not a lot in regards to the village. You're not asking for money or
No.
anything like that, just some coordination. The only other challenge that I would say that you may have with the village is around our new village center, that Spirit Park, which we call it, is going to be very much under construction because we're going to be putting a new septic field in there and some redesign of the thing. So that's going to be all fenced off.
Got
So
it.
I'm wondering if it may be worthwhile to, first of all, reach out to Bunsen Lake or BC Hydro,
Sure.
and then follow up with possibly the school.
Okay, absolutely.
Where
We went
they are
through,
right now.
sure.
Yeah.
We went through a whole risk mitigation thing, scenario planning, and all that stuff.
Yeah.
I've got people who volunteered from legal, compliance, insurance, all that stuff to look at it, the whole assessment, all that stuff as well. My team is very organized, very attention to detail, checklists, spreadsheets, all that stuff as well. So it's not Mickey Mouse kind of thing what we're doing.
I would welcome you to come
Yeah.
back when you have a couple of those things.
Sure.
And now that you have a date and you have some of the particulars, I don't know.
Absolutely. Do you have somebody you can connect me with the BC Hydro just so I have the right office or the right department?
Miss Elric would have all of that, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, who are liaison, we
Great.
have a community liaison that you would be able to
Okay.
talk to.
Great, thank you so much. Appreciate that.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
for coming out, and thank you for maybe not spreading the love of our trails so much. So, okay, we have adoption of the minutes of the regular council meeting held on March 21st, 2023. Recommendation would read.
Minutes of the regular council meeting held on March 21st, 2023 be adopted as circulated.
Someone to move those minutes? Moved, seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. Was there any business arising from the minutes? No, seeing none, we'll move on to the consent agenda. Any council member wishes to remove an item for further discussion, may do so at this time. Okay. Item D? Okay. So I'll get someone to move the consent agenda, which includes item A and C. Someone to move that, move, seconded, all those in favor, opposed, carried unanimously. Okay, Anmore Web Survey Summary Report. Should we get the recommendation on first?
Recommendation is that council receive the Anmore Web Survey Summary Report for information.
Someone move that, move, second, Councilor Weber.
Yeah, I just wanted to, I thought maybe it was a good opportunity for staff to speak to it, like what we've got a great report and all that. Sorry.
Yeah, I just thought it'd be a great opportunity for staff to speak to the survey and what came out of the survey. Maybe I'll pass it over to Ms.
Sure, absolutely, through the chair. So, as you know, this survey, or as you may know, the survey was open for responses between March 6th and 20th. And as part of our overhaul of our website, we wanted to reach out to residents to find out what's important to them on the website, what things they like, what things they'd like to see on the website. And we did receive 42 respondents who shared their input. Now that doesn't sound like a lot, but it's actually a good percentage. It's 5% of our households, and typically that would be a good percentage to receive for this type of survey. So what we learned from this survey is sort of the priorities of what people are looking for. Garbage and recycling was at the top of the list, which we do get lots of phone calls about, so that wasn't surprising. And then information on bylaws, council meetings, forms. Our new website will be implementing the ability to fill out and submit the forms right from the website, whereas now you have to fill the form out, the PDF, either save it, scan it or fax it to us or send it to us otherwise. Another interesting thing that we found out that's going to really help us on our navigation is that some of the things that people were asking for, such as option to provide online payments and some other information, are things that we already have on our website. So what that's telling us is we don't have a great navigation right now, and people just aren't aware of all the things that are on the website. So although some of the things are features that we already have, it was very valuable information in terms of us understanding where we need to place the navigation and lay out our homepage and things like that. So I do thank everybody who participated in the survey. Additionally, as we move through the process and onto navigation, we will be engaging with any residents who want to provide some further feedback on the navigation. So if you wish to do so, you can contact Brooke Hovey, our communications coordinator, and her information is on the website and as well as on the summary.
Thank you. Any other further comments, Councilor Weber? No. Okay, so it's been moved and seconded. I'll call the questions. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried unanimously. Okay, we'll now move on to legislative reports, temporary borrowing bylaw, Anmore Community Hub. A report dated March 31st, 2023 from Ms. Martin, Manager of Financial Services. Ms. Martin.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Bringing forward a bylaw to authorize temporary borrowing pending the future long-term borrowing issued for the Anmore Community Hub. The loan authorization bylaw was adopted on December 6, 2022 by Council, and on March 21st, 2023, Council provided the following direction: that Council directs staff to draw partial funds for the Hub loan by temporary borrowing bylaw. Under Section 181 of the Community Charter, Council may, where it has adopted a loan authorization bylaw without future assents or approvals, borrow temporarily under the conditions set out by the temporary borrowing bylaw, not exceeding the difference between the total amount authorized by the loan authorization bylaw and the amount already borrowed in relation to that bylaw. To the extent necessary, the proceeds of the long-term borrowing must be used to repay the money for the temporary borrowing. And that's all I have.
Do you have a recommendation?
The recommendation is that Council give first, second, and third reading to Anmore Community Hub Temporary Borrowing Bylaw number 677, 2023.
Someone to move that? Moved. Seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. We're now going to move into these infill applications. I would ask that when somebody is recusing, if they could please just for the record identify reason for the reclusion, which I forgot to ask for, sorry. Okay. Okay, so we'll now move on to 9B, 68 Elementary Zoning Amendment Bylaw number 665-2023.
I would like to recuse myself because my property butts onto that subdivided property.
Okay, the recommendation would read, Ms. Elmer?
Recommendation would be that Council give third reading to Anmore Zoning Amendment Bylaw 665-2023.
Someone to move that? Move. Seconded. Open up for discussion of council.
Just because I like to
Council Richardson.
feedback what I hear in a public hearing. Yeah, it means another road access to Sunnyside, and I know on MRN roads we try to not have access to the MRN network. So specifically it makes it challenging, but I don't actually see another way to avoid that. So on that note, I think it's valid.
Okay, I'll call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried unanimously. We'll now move on on to 9C, 2519 East Road, zoning amendment bylaw number 666-2023.
I will recuse. The back of the property backs up to our street.
Ms. Howard, if you could read the recommendation.
Recommendation is that council grant third reading to Anmore zoning amendment bylaw 666-2023.
Someone to move that? Moved, seconded? Any comments?
I just wanted to make one comment. I had a call from a resident who's sitting right there, Mr. Crocker, and I want to apologize to him because apparently we did have the information on some of the lots as to the size of lots that were going to be carved off, and I don't recall that. I'm not saying that it didn't happen, I just don't, and I misspoke to Mr. Crocker, so it sounds like I did have that information and I just don't remember.
It was also the full packages were also presented to the APC meeting, which was a public meeting which some attended as well. So. Okay, it's been moved and seconded, so I'll call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried unanimously. Thanks, Councillor Richardson. Okay, we'll now run on to 2860 Sunnyside Road zoning amendment bylaw number 667-2023. The recommendation would read.
The council give third reading to Anmore zoning amendment bylaw number 667-2023.
Someone to move that? Second? Open up for discussion. Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed?
Aye.
Carried unanimously. We'll now move on to 3060 Anmore Creek Way zoning amendment bylaw number 668-2023. The recommendation would read.
The council give third reading to Anmore zoning amendment bylaw number 668-2023.
Someone to move that? Second? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed?
Aye.
Carried unanimously. And then finally, we have the number F, 9F, which is the 2192 Sunnyside Road zoning amendment bylaw, number 669-2023. The recommendation would read.
The council give third reading to Anmore zoning amendment bylaw number 669-2023.
Could I get someone to move that? Moved. Seconded. Open up for discussion. Councillor Richardson?
This one actually causes some issue for me, and it's sort of newer information. I've spent some time driving around Anmore looking at current infrastructure, and in sort of response to Fiona Cherry, I can't actually understand Ludlow Lane / that part of Sunnyside versus Montgomery Lane with respect to what infrastructure actually means. So when I think of infrastructure for future subdivision, it's concrete curbs, pavement of about 8 meters in width, sidewalks, water main, fire hydrants, and a sub-road bed of a certain stature. When I go on that part of the road, it's somewhat maybe paved in little chunks here and there. It's not clear to me where the road is and where it isn't. There's no concrete curbs. I don't know what the water main situation is, if it's a plastic pipe or a full main, or fire hydrants. So when we say it's got, no other infrastructure required, if that was an RS1 subdivision at the end of it, I'm sure that they would be required to build up that road to the sort of standard of Anmore. And I don't know if it's going to be required here on subdivision, because it's for the people in the audience. We do the rezoning, and then the approving officer does the subdivision. But if there's improvements required in subdivision, that means there is an existing infrastructure. So I don't know how to balance that off with Montgomery Lane, and I think the way to do that is to be clear on what the infrastructure requirements for infill in existence happens to be, if that makes sense.
Mr. Boyd?
Yeah, it makes sense. So there's kind of a bit of a extenuating circumstance on Marmary Lane, or not, sorry, Marmary Lane. No, sorry, wrong one, Ludlow Lane on this one, or actually.
And I think we need to define that this property could be identified as both. Is that what it is?
It's referred to as Ludlow Lane, but it's actually, from a legal perspective, it's actually zoned as, sorry, not zoned, it's actually referred to as Sunnyside Road. So on this one, the reason that we were looking at no further infrastructure upgrades back in January was because Council last year provided direction to actually pave Ludlow Lane previously. And the previous subdivision at the end of this lane had actually installed a new water main and fire hydrants along this roadway. So no, from my staff's perspective, there was no real upgrades required to meet this requirement on this one.
So all the infrastructure is there to meet?
Yeah, I mean, given direction from council, this road was supposed to be regraded and paved to take it out, because that's one of the policies we're trying to deal with within the villages, to remove the majority of our gravel roadways from an operational perspective. So that's why this one kind of went through the net of, well, I don't think it needs any more upgrades at this point in time.
So could I just be clear? So that means that the subbed under the proposed pavement is also up to standard of a highway, you know?
Yeah, so that's one of the things we'll take care of as part of that capital works package, would be to review that and just install a little bit more gravel if required.
Okay. And so to be clear, the infrastructure currently is not in place.
As of right now, no.
Okay. So
The funding's in place.
So how do we do an infill approval if the infrastructure is currently not in place?
So I've talked with the proponent on this particular property. I'd sent correspondence to Ms. Cherry as well regarding this, that if someone is going to be subdividing in front of a property like this where the infrastructure isn't quite finished, as in regards to, say, the pavement, that we would be expecting that proponent to provide a sum of money that would be fronting their property back to the village. So they pay their fair share.
For all infill?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Similar to a bond.
Yeah, it could be through a bond or just through a check as well.
And I do believe, I remember, I guess it was about 3 years ago, substantial waterworks were done through there because of the development at the end of Ludlow Lane. There was significant water upgrades along that road.
Yeah, correct.
Okay, any other further questions or comments? See none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. Now move on to 9G, 2023 Anmore Water Rates and Regulation Bylaw Amendment.
Sorry.
Ms. Elbert?
Thank you. So this bylaw was before council at the last regular council meeting for first 3 readings. So this evening the recommendation would be that council adopt Anmore Water Rates and Regulations Amendment Bylaw 675/2023.
Someone to move that? Seconded? Any comments? Call the question. All those in favor? Opposed?
Aye.
Carried unanimously. Now move on to 9H, the 2023 Anmore Solid Waste Management Bylaw Amendment. Recommendation would read.
That council adopt Anmore Solid Waste Management Bylaw Amendment number 676/2023.
Someone to move that? Moved. Seconded? Any questions, comments? I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. Okay. Down to the, we're now at the mayor's report. A few things. And I just wanted, the PRV station at the end of Thompson and East Road is now operational. Just finished the other day, I was told, and just to make people aware, because I've had a few people, some concerns about how the sidewalk and if there's going to be any impeding infrastructure in the middle of the sidewalk, that's all taken out. Those were vents for the previous underground PRV station, so they'll be all taken out and that's all going to get groomed and paved right up to that. This will allow staff to be able to monitor that without having to go down below, and it's quite a, it looks like it's running quite well. I know there was a couple of leaks, but I think the contractors finished all of those things. You all might have noticed that we're seeing some progress at the Village Hub. The roof is on. And she got QDEC on the roof, which is a big, big thing. This should get rolling quite quickly now. They've got a full crew, and they're still saying that we'll be done by September-ish.
Yeah.
Let's hope the weather stays good, but yeah, they've made some great progress, and they've done a lot. You know, while we were waiting for the BC Hydro, they were doing a lot of the works around the groundworks and that to get things ready. I should let you know as well, TransLink let me know that we will be receiving increased bus transit for Bourne Lake this summer. Every half hour, buses will be coming. Sorry, Bunsen Lake, yeah. Yeah, Bunsen Lake, that was a Freudian slip. Yeah. Anyway, so we will have good transit for that, and as well, I think we're going to be I'll be meeting with Ms. Elric, just going through some of the logistics of what happened last year regarding the reservation system, which again, was significant change in regards to the village, in regards to clearing up the north end and making sure that we didn't have a parking lot up there and that emergency vehicles could get in and out in case of a sense of emergency. Full garbage this Thursday due to the Easter weekend, so there'll be full garbage pickup this Thursday because Friday's Good Friday. So just to let everybody know. Easter egg hunt will be this Saturday at 11 o'clock. Normally we have it at Spirit Park. Am I taking all your thunder?
My list is
I know Carrie had mentioned to mention this. 11 o'clock. Normally we have it at Spirit Park. It's going to be down at the school this year, just because of the park is the situation up there. There's no parking. I had a couple conversations with some people from Countryside regarding the possibility of a hybrid solution about their water metering, and I'd like it if we could set up if I could set up a meeting with you, Mr. Boyd, Scott, and just talk about it. They've come a long way from where they were before, and they just want to see if there's some possibilities, just with utilizing the metering and that. So just I thought it would be good if we could set up a meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's, through the mayor, just to note that the meter readings are happening right now.
Yeah.
So I think for this spring reading,
Yeah.
that the intention would be to move forward with the one reading, and then certainly if you would like staff to meet up regarding
Well,
some
we'll
other stuff.
have a discussion and that, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And then I also received an email from Ms. Maloney about a campfire permit and about yard trimmings, which is something that she was very interested in. We haven't done the traditional trimmings where we put bundles of stuff out at the end of the driveways for probably, I'm going to say, I look back, I think it's been 10 years. And at the time it was about $7,500 to the village. I'm sure it would be about double that. And it wasn't fruitful at all because it was so expensive. She made some comments that this happened at the March 21st council. It actually didn't. It happened at the March 7th meeting. And one of the conversation that was going on was between actually her and Paul, and I made some comments in context with him about how he deals with some of the large limbs and some of the lumber that comes down if trees are falling over and stuff like that. I think it's important to note that I at no point said that you know, we should be burning green wood or twigs and stuff like that. So it's just you know, we have to deal with that. And like I said, at the time when we canceled that was over 10 years ago. It wasn't being serviced to many people at all. So that's it. I'll open up now to the councillors' reports. Nothing? Councillor Richardson.
I would just like to remind everybody that bears are now in season again, and on Fridays they make a mess because people don't wash their frickin' containers before they put them in their bin. So, could you please wash your containers and make them clean so that I don't have bears dragging it into my yard and then have my dogs getting sick eating the stuff that the bears drag into their yard. And I think it's overall better for the bears. I like to live with the bears, so let's try and keep them safe. Same as coyotes, crows, ravens. Everything will go into those containers while they sit out there until they get picked up. I also had some discussions with residents with respect to Countryside and water meeting, and it's glad to hear that there's going to be a discussion on that. The general consensus was there should be a better, more balanced way. And then my last comment would be, if you've watched the news lately, there's all sorts of reports about councils fighting in like Saanich and other places. To one point, I think it was Saanich, where they one council member stole the mayor's gavel. Anyway, my point of saying that is, despite us having some sometimes strong different opinions, it's all cordial and good, so I quite appreciate that being a good council member.
Any other? Okay. Councillor Trowbridge, do you have anything, or?
Yeah, just a quick comment. It's my understanding that there's going to be an open house on the 15th, I believe it is, Icona Open House. Hopefully people will attend. If I'm available on that Saturday, I plan to be there and hear what Icona, it's been silent for a long, long time, so I'd love to hear what Greg and folks are going to say at the open house. I hope everyone will go.
Good. Thank you. I'll move to our Chief Administrative Officer's report, and I'm sorry for stealing all your thunder. We need to talk beforehand, I guess.
No problem at all. I will just remind everybody that we are still continuing with water main flushing, probably for the rest of this week and next week. And that Village Hall will be closed for Easter on Monday, April 10th, as well as Friday, April 7th. And that is it for me.
We don't have any information. I'll open up to public question period, but remind people, let's keep questions to an operational theme of the village, and any questions of any technicality, feel free to send an email in to get those answers. We can't be expected to answer some of these questions on the spot, so. Can you get up, name and address, please?
Lisa Johnston, 180 Hemlock. Just be patient while I read a little bit of stuff because I have to go back a few council meetings. So on January 16th, we know that Premier Eby announced the Housing Supply Act. Also in this announcement, the Minister of Housing spoke for quite some time. You can all watch the YouTube video, but I'm just going to quote a portion of the speech here that says, we're looking at a two-track system. But one of the messages that I've given to all communities, and I've been meeting with mayors throughout the province and talking to them about what we need, is that it doesn't matter if you live in Vancouver or you live in Anmore. We need all the communities to take part in it. And so although we will be choosing 8 to 10 communities to be part of the Housing Supply Act, we need everyone to participate. He goes on to say, so I spoke to the mayor of Anmore and I said, okay, you need to be part of the housing solution. That means you guys need to have the housing come online. And also communities as big as Vancouver, North Vancouver. He says more, but I'm not going to go on. So in the March 7th council meeting, Nancy Maloney inquired with you, Mr. McEwen, Mayor McEwen, and asked about your meeting. You denied that there was any conversation. On March 21st.
Actually, that's not what I said.
Well, you said, sorry, okay, she said, did you have a meeting? You said I didn't have a meeting. And then you went on to say, actually, I spoke to him last Thursday.
Okay.
Okay, then on March 20th.
So I need to clarify because you're not accurate.
I watched the video today.
Yeah, what I did say was that I'd never met the man in person.
You never met with him?
Right, I never met with him in person, and then on the following Thursday, I met with him as a representative on a Zoom call from Metro Vancouver.
Okay, that's what I wanted to clarify, because you did say that you did not meet with him in response to Nancy asking you about conversations that you had had with him with regards to
She asked if I met with him in person.
Right. So that's what I wanted to clarify, is was there a conversation, text, email, Zoom, any kind of a conversation regarding the Village of Anmore being part of the Housing Supply Act that you had with the Minister of Housing? Because subsequent to that, on the 21st of March, Councillor Richardson actually put a motion from the floor asking the Village of Anmore to inquire further. And shortly thereafter, Greg Moore, CEO of Icona, stepped forward in defense and said again that Anmore was not mentioned in this quote that I just said out loud, and that you were not mentioned as having a conversation as well. So I just want clarification.
I don't think that's correct either.
You don't, what part's not correct?
Because the verbatim that Mr. Moore said did mention Anmore.
He said, yes, he did say that they mentioned Vancouver to Anmore, and it could be a whole bunch of communities in between. Councillor Richardson said, well, I watched the video and I'm pretty sure that he did, the Minister of Housing did make reference to having a conversation with the Mayor of Anmore. And Mr. Moore said, no, he didn't. So I just wanted some clarification on whether you've had a conversation with the Minister of Housing, either in person, text, Zoom, face-to-face, telephone call, some kind of communication regarding the possibility of Anmore becoming involved in the housing plan. You've not had a conversation?
I've not had a conversation
Okay.
with him, with Anmore being involved in that. But I can tell you that according to one of the council that we passed, I think it was the last council meeting, is we're actually sent a letter out to get clarification from the ministry.
Right, okay, so it's a did you know that the Minister of Housing refers to having a conversation with the Mayor of Anmore?
Yeah, and that's what we're asking him, what that's about.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay, I'd like clarification,
Yeah.
thank you.
Any other questions?
Something less controversial. Nancy Maloney, 1724 East Road. And a while back, though it was down by Anmore Green, there seemed to be a traffic study being done. And it was mentioned at that time that the village was doing a traffic study. Was the word on the street, that was the word on the street. But, so I wondered if there's going to be any sort of report from that traffic study. And though it was on in our part of East Road, it was, someone counting cars more down by the Anmore Green area.
You must have access to my emails, Nancy, because I received it this afternoon, a draft report of the requested report. So
How timely, how timely.
yeah, so we're expecting the staff to be able to provide a report to council at the next council meeting.
Was, may I talk to Chris? Ask Chris.
Through
the chair.
Yeah, sure,
Yes.
yes.
Was it only that section of East Road?
No, we did a review of the whole MRM road, so from entrance to entrance of the village, along East Road and Sunnyside Road.
Yeah, we never saw anyone up by our section of East Road.
I wasn't on site with them, so I couldn't tell you exactly where they were. I know they did traffic counts, and they also did speed reading counts as well.
Oh, very good.
I think at one point we had some inquiries because people were a little curious why these people were sitting in cars right now.
Exactly.
Yeah, we sent a note out just in case people were worried of why were there strange men standing counting cars.
Yes.
Good.
Looking forward to the
Good.
report.
Good. Good. Thank you. Any other questions? Go ahead.
Jurgen Upton, 1815 A East Road. My question pertains to the PRV that the mayor mentioned, the pressure reducing valve. I understand that the mechanism is now above ground for reasons of efficiency, cost, and worker safety. I also understand that they used a gray box to put on the piping system because it's cheaper than a green box and more readily available. So kudos to the village. I also understand from talking to Steve of Drake Excavating, who was in charge of the above ground aspects, that the plan is to put a green wrap around the gray box at that intersection. My question to council is, instead of putting a green wrap around the gray box, why not put something a little bit more significant on the box, a heritage picture, for example? In other words, how about placing a picture of the old Montgomery homestead on a dull gray box? After all, it's our former village hall and our council chambers, and in my view, if I'm allowed to extend this, it's important for three different reasons. It acknowledges our past while at the same time the hub nears completion. It also, if it's linked to heritage, is less apt to be vandalized for usually youth, probably with spray paint. And I also think it might encourage people to slow down at that intersection just to take a look.
Thank you. Through the mayor, I think that we actually did have some internal discussions about this and perhaps with the contractor as well about the size of the box, and that any photos or images would become quite distorted as opposed to some of the wrapped hydro boxes that you see. So it's certainly something that we could look into. But our initial discussion was that it may not work in this instance, and it was something that we can
I think the premise is that we want it to just sort of disappear by putting sort of a natural landscape on it, but we can look into those other things.
Through the chair, I did speak to the fellow, Steve, and he said they do put naturescapes on them, but they also put other places put heritage sites or heritage images on them. So I don't know how they do it, but it would cost more figures, but it's possible.
Something to take into consideration. Thank you. Any other?
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. I just got a general question for council and
Name and
for.
address.
Oh, my name is Crystal. I'm at 2120 East Road.
Okay.
I just had a general question for council. I understand you issue permits when people in the community need to have work done. And I'm just wondering if you were to issue a permit and one of the conditions of that permit was to put land back to the way it was before the work was done, and that was not followed. I'm just curious to know what are the remedies available in that case.
I have no idea what, sorry, I can't answer. I would suggest you send an email out to the village hall.
So if work needs to be done on a property, and I understand if it's a developer or someone like that, and they need to obtain permission from the village to do work, am I correct in that understanding?
Again, we only deal with policy. We don't get into the weeds with regard to what you're asking. So
All right,
I can't.
Yeah.
I would suggest sending an email to.
I mean, I can answer generally for you. The answer
Lovely,
is
thank you.
yes. Like most work requires a permit within the village. It could be a development variance permit. It could be a building permit. All kinds of different permits are required. And yes, there's always conditions applied to those permits. Typically, and if people aren't following the requirements of the permit, there are means and methods to have it remediated. Some can be very long-winded and some can be very straightforward. It's very varying depending on what it is and how it went down and all the other bits and pieces. So it's a very difficult question to ask in a generalised way. I'd recommend if you have a particular question, to send it into the village so we can review it and provide you with more context.
And of course, thank you. And are the permits publicly available? Are they posted online, or how does that work?
Not typically.
Not typically. Okay, so if I had a question about a specific permit, I could ask.
You could ask. We may not be able to provide you with the information as well. Again, it's a very difficult one to give you a general answer to.
All right, will do. Thank you very much.
I will. Yes, little short one.
Sorry, I just thought of this.
Yeah.
I just recently had a very long drive and very heavy traffic back to Anmore from BGH. So I had CBC radio on as usual. And several times people on CBC radio said that if any Easter egg hunts are being planned for this weekend, they should be moved inside. That there's going to be very serious rain happening on the weekend. So that was my thought while I was sitting there. Is it at all possible, if that forecast is correct? Anyway, they were saying it will be horrible weather for children being engaged in any outdoor Easter egg hunt activity.
I don't think it ever rains in Anmore. I think it's something that will be playing by ear, and I think the people that are coordinated will take, as years past, have taken that into consideration.
Okay.
Yeah. Normally we don't, I don't know if you've been for a while, we don't give out, we give out those big plastic cakes, so they won't be damaged by the wet at all, and then the kids bring it back, and then we have baskets that are already pre-made that we actually give the kids. So all the eggs that are out are these big kind of plastic ones and that, so that the weather wouldn't have any impact on that at all.
I was hoping that will not be rain dollars.
I hope so too.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
I was just going to say, it's the first time I've ever heard council being asked to predict the weather.
What's the question? What's the answer?
Motion to adjourn. Second, all those in favor?